You have been an advocate for outdoor education for a really long time. Why?
There are so many reasons to be an advocate for outdoor education. That could be like the whole video that we make, honestly. I think if I were trying to come up with sort of the short version of that is I think it connects kids to their world. And I think we so often think of education as within the school walls, but that's not a realistic view of what we want for our kids. I think they need to see how they fit into their natural world because they are a part of it and they are affecting it. And I think we need to show them how they're affecting it not only in ways that can be harmful, but that they can make a positive difference in their world. The other reason I'm an advocate for is because research shows that getting students outside and active and moving and exploring boosts academic achievement, and it also helps reduce behavior problems because kids are engaged and they feel empowered to take ownership of their own learning. And I think why wouldn't we want that for our kids?
How do you think that Ignite supports a variety of learning styles?
So we all know, right, that all of our kids are different from each other. And so I think when I think about the plan for Ignite, I get really excited for our kids because we have designed spaces with Ignite that are going to reach all our different kinds of learners. So we have some really purposeful ones where it's more of a guided kind of learning, where we have places they can explore in really purposeful ways. But we've also designed spaces with Ignite that are more kind of free play and free exploration for our kids who need that kind of learning environment. In addition, we'll have the outdoor classroom, which I think is really going to be helpful for when we need a little bit of direct instruction before we set them loose. So the fact that there's all the different ways that kids can access their outdoor learning is going to reach so many different kinds of learning styles of our kids.
You guys have been doing a lot of different things in terms of professional development here at Tillman. Can you tell me a little bit about that and also how you see Ignite fitting into that?
Sure. So as a staff, we've spent a lot of time recently over the last year really looking at problem-based learning or project-based learning, which gets our kids looking at real-world problems and figuring out how they can make a difference. It really looks at learning in a different way where we are not teaching in subjects in isolation. So it's not math time and reading time and writing time and science time. It's how can we solve this complex problem using all of our different knowledge. So I think Ignite fits perfectly into that because that's exactly what we would want them to do. It teaches kids to think differently about how they use information and that it has a real purpose. As a district, we recently had an instructional summit on innovative instruction and how we need to change our instruction to meet our world that's so different than when we grew up. So when we grew up, all those isolated subjects were kind of how we learned, but now we know kids are growing up in a world that is going to look very different for them. We don't even know really what kind of world they're going to access because it's changing so quickly. And so when we think about what we want our kids to have, we need them to be critical thinkers and problem solvers. At this summit, we had the opportunity to talk to these 20-something entrepreneurs, and we asked them, what was it you wished education had given you when you left school? What were the things you wished you knew? And they said, we wish that we had been taught creativity, that we had been taught critical thinking, that we had been taught to be problem solvers. And so those are all the things that Ignite is going to give our kids because they're going to be able to do all those things and develop those skills. I think there will always be some basic knowledge that we need our kids to have, right? Like we need our kids to be able to read and to write and to do math. And I wouldn't ever want anybody to think that when we're looking at innovative ways of doing instruction that we think in any way our kids don't need those basic skills. I think what I want for our kids is to understand how they can be empowered by that knowledge, how those basic skills can be applied in ways where they can use them to make our world a better place or to solve problems or think critically, which then to me says we need our kids to develop those process skills. So I want our kids leaving Tillman with what I had already talked about, like that we want them to be creative, we want them to be critical thinkers and problem solvers and innovators, looking at how they can affect change in their world. And I think Ignite does all those things, right? So you're not going to go outside and say, okay, now is our time only to write about what we see outside, because kids aren't wired that way. They're going to see those connections. And if we provide them opportunities in that space to explore and be creative and think critically, they're going to develop those skills that we want. Because again, we don't know what world they're going into. So what we teach them now might not even apply later in their life, but if we can develop those process skills that will be timeless, right? We always want our kids to be creative and be critical thinkers and be problem solvers and all those things, be innovators. We know those are going to be useful to them forever in all parts of their life. So that's what I would want for our kids. For our school, I'm ready for Tillman to be the innovator. I'm ready for us to be on the cutting edge and the forefront of looking at instruction differently. And then I want to share that knowledge. I want us to be a model for other schools. I want people coming here and saying, how is it that your kids are doing these incredible creative things? Teach us, because then, we are the model for how to do it right. And that's what I want for our school.